The HOA president didn't just fine me $5,000 for my ugly garden. She secretly poisoned my dying wife's favorite roses, tried to steal my $750,000 inheritance, and then attempted arson to destroy my wife's final resting place. But when federal archaeologists declared that same garden a historic site worth $500,000, I made sure her entire criminal empire came crashing down in the most spectacular way possible. Picture this. My wife Sarah, dying of cancer, gripping my trembling hands in that sterile hospital room. The smell of antiseptic couldn't mask her fear as she whispered her final wish. Restore grandmother's garden, Marcus. Promise me. My ashes, I want them there, mixed with the soil where love grew for generations. Dead people don't need gardens, Marcus, Delilah Thornfield snarled 8 months later, her manicured nails drumming against my doorframe. Time to face reality and sell. What she didn't know, Sarah's cremated remains were already nurturing those sacred roses, and I was about to turn her greed into a federal crime. What would you do if someone tried to desecrate your spouse's grave for profit? Comment below. How far is too far when protecting true love? My name is Marcus Hartwell, and at 52, I thought I understood loss. 8 months ago, cancer stole my wife Sarah from me, leaving behind an empty house that echoed with her laughter and a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. But Sarah wasn't just my soulmate, she was a brilliant woman who saw through people's facades long before I did. As she grew weaker, Sarah spent hours researching our property's history, discovering something that would change everything. My grandmother Rosalind hadn't just left me a house, she'd left a carefully crafted legal trap worth $750,000. Marcus, Sarah whispered one afternoon, her fingers trembling as she showed me yellowed legal documents. The scent of her vanilla perfume was fading, replaced by the sterile smell of medical equipment. Your grandmother was smarter than we knew. This garden, it's not just about beauty. There's a trust fund, $750,000, but only if the garden remains intact as a living memorial. She knew someone would try to steal this place. That someone was Delilah Thornfield, our HOA president, and the woman who'd smiled at Sarah's funeral while secretly planning to destroy everything we held sacred. What I didn't know then was that Delilah had been plotting for 8 years, ever since Sarah inherited grandmother's house in a will contest that left Delilah bitter and empty-handed. See, both women had been grandmother's neighbors, but Sarah had actually cared for the old woman during her final years while Delilah saw only dollar signs. When grandmother chose Sarah as heir, Delilah's friendly mask cracked, revealing the calculating real estate predator beneath. Behind her perfectly maintained smile, Delilah ran a shadow empire. Her LLC, buried under layers of legal paperwork, had systematically targeted our street's original homeowners. Eleanor Vance, the sweet widow next door, told me how Delilah had helped her move to assisted living after a sudden spike in citations. Frank Morrison, the veteran with PTSD who found peace in his garden, sold his house after mysterious utility shutoffs and tax reassessments. The pattern was brilliant in its cruelty. Identify vulnerable homeowners, manufacture violations, create financial pressure, then swoop in with below-market rescue offers through shell companies. Delilah wasn't just our HOA president, she was running a sophisticated property theft operation worth over $12 million in projected luxury townhouse development. But Sarah's death had given Delilah her golden opportunity. The day after the funeral, while I was still numb with grief, she appeared at my door with fake tears and a business proposition. Marcus, honey, she'd cooed, her manicured hand touching my arm, while her cold eyes calculated property values. Sarah wouldn't want you struggling with this big old house. Maybe it's time to start fresh somewhere new. I know some investors who'd pay cash, help you move on. What she didn't mention was that she was the investor, hidden behind legal documents and shell companies. The psychological warfare began subtly. Anonymous calls to Adult Protective Services claiming I was having a breakdown. Whispered conversations with neighbors about my unhealthy attachment to a dead woman. Strategic suggestions that grief was making me unstable, dangerous, incapable of maintaining property or making rational decisions. Then came the garden sabotage. Sarah's favorite heritage, roses, irreplaceable specimens she'd lovingly researched and requested for the memorial, suddenly withered overnight. The accidental herbicide overspray happened during community beautification work that Delilah had personally overseen. Standing in that poisoned garden, touching the brown edges of petals that had bloomed for Sarah just weeks before, I felt something crack inside my chest. This wasn't just vandalism, it was desecration of sacred ground where my wife's ashes were mixed with soil that had nurtured love for generations. The $5,000 fine came with perfect timing, 30 days to correct violations or face legal action, with the deadline falling exactly on Sarah's death anniversary. Delilah's psychological cruelty was surgical in its precision. But as I knelt in that damaged garden, breathing in the lingering scent of Sarah's memorial lavender and listening to silence where her wind chimes once sang, I made a decision that would change everything. Sarah had left me more than just a garden and a promise. She'd left me the tools to fight back. I just didn't know yet that I was about to uncover a criminal conspiracy that would make national headlines. The desecration of Sarah's memorial began 3 weeks after her roses died. I was kneeling beside her favorite river rock-smooth granite she'd chosen because it reminded her of our honeymoon in Maine, when Delilah's shadow fell across the sacred ground where my wife's ashes nourished new growth. That memorial stone violates our no religious displays policy, Marcus, she announced, her voice sharp as winter wind. The morning dew made Sarah's rock glisten like tears, and I could smell the faint lavender scent that still clung to this hallowed space. And those wind chimes, noise ordinance violation, 24 hours to remove them or face additional fines. My hands clenched involuntarily, feeling the cool smoothness of Sarah's memorial stone beneath my palm. This isn't religious. It's my wife's grave. Delilah's laugh was like breaking glass. Your wife is gone, Marcus. Cremated remains don't belong in residential gardens. That's a health code violation. Time to let go and move forward. Sarah wouldn't want you clinging to the past like this. That night, I couldn't sleep. Sarah's wind chimes played their gentle melody outside my bedroom window, the sound that had comforted me through 8 months of grief. By morning they were gone, cut down with deliberate precision, leaving jagged metal edges that caught my skin when I touched them. But Delilah had made a crucial mistake. Her systematic cruelty had awakened something in me that grief had kept dormant, my analytical mind. Sarah always said I was like a detective when something captured my attention, following evidence trails until truth emerged. I started with Eleanor Vance, who lived 3 houses down in what used to be her family's century-old home. Over chamomile tea that smelled like Sarah's evening ritual, Eleanor revealed the pattern I'd been too broken to see. It started with surprise inspections, Eleanor whispered, her wrinkled hands shaking as she poured. Delilah found violations I'd never heard of: window box height restrictions, mailbox positioning rules, sidewalk crack tolerances. The fines kept coming, $50, then $200, then $500. When I couldn't pay, she offered to help me transition to assisted living. The bitter taste of realization filled my mouth. Who bought your house? Some investment company. Delilah recommended them, said they were neighborhood friendly. Bought it for 60% of market value. Eleanor's voice broke. I thought she was helping me. That evening, I researched property records until my eyes burned from screen glare. The pattern emerged like a disease spreading through our street. Vulnerable homeowners, escalating citations, below-market sales to the same LLC network. Delilah wasn't just corrupt. She was running a sophisticated elderly abuse operation, but her psychological warfare against me was just beginning. Anonymous tips flooded government agencies like poison in clear water. The IRS received concerned citizen reports about my inheritance, demanding audits of the trust fund. Credit reporting agencies got false debt claims. The mortgage company received warnings about declining property values affecting my loan qualification. Each day brought new harassment disguised as bureaucratic concern. Utility companies got neighbor complaints about unpaid bills, triggering service suspension threats. The health department received anonymous reports about unsanitary burial practices with Sarah's cremated remains, forcing traumatic inspections of our sacred memorial space. The cruelest blow came when I discovered Sarah's hidden research notes, tucked behind grandmother's antique jewelry box. Her careful handwriting covered pages of legal documentation, tracking Delilah's suspicious behavior throughout Sarah's illness. She'd known, somehow, even while fighting cancer, Sarah had recognized the predator circling our home. Marcus, her final note read, if you're reading this, something's happened to me and Delilah is making her move. The garden preservation requirement isn't just grandmother's whim, it's legal protection. The trust fund can fund legal defense, but only if you keep the memorial intact. I've documented her conversations about helping you move on. Don't let her steal what 3 generations built with love. Knowledge nugget. Always research who benefits from your compliance with demands. Predators often disguise theft as help. Sarah's words hit me like ice water on burning skin. My brilliant wife had been conducting her own investigation while I focused on her medical care, building a case against the woman who smiled at her funeral. That night, Delilah escalated to outright vandalism. I woke to silence, not the peaceful quiet of dawn, but the terrible absence of Sarah's memorial wind chimes. Racing outside in my pajamas, bare feet wet with dew, I found the copper tubes scattered across the garden like broken bones. Sarah's carefully positioned River Rock Memorial had been repositioned for compliance, no longer marking the spot where her ashes enriched the soil. Standing in that violated space, breathing the scent of disturbed earth and crushed lavender stems, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. Grief transformed into steel-cold determination.